Choosing the right contract type is a critical part of acquisition planning, and the Federal Acquisition Regulation, or FAR, provides a wide variety of contract types that are available for contracting officers to use. FAR Part 16 describes the different contract types that may be used in acquisitions. Contract types can generally be classified into three categories: fixed-price contracts, cost reimbursement contracts, and time and materials and labor hour contracts. Selecting the appropriate contract type is very important, as it is a driver of risk, incentives, and obligations for both the government and the contractor. Under a fixed-price contract, the government assumes the least amount of risk, and under a cost reimbursement contract, the government assumes the greatest amount of risk. Time and materials contracts and labor hour contracts fall somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. Let's learn a little more about the three general categories of contract types. First, we'll talk about fixed-price contracts. Fixed-price contracts pay the contractor a fixed amount, which is agreed upon at contract award. This contract type places maximum risk and responsibility for performance on the contractor. In firm fixed-price contracts, which are the most common type of fixed-price contracts, the contractor is paid a fixed amount for supplies or services when there are reasonably definite functional or detailed specifications, and the contracting officer can establish a fair and reasonable price at the time of contract award. For example, if the contract provides for a payment of $450,000 upon delivery of 5,000 widgets, and the cost of each individual widget rises during contract performance, the contractor will still be paid only $450,000 for all of the widgets. Firm fixed-price contracts provide the maximum incentive for the contractor to control costs and perform effectively, and imposes minimal administrative burden on the contracting parties. When circumstances prevent the agency from adequately defining requirements necessary to allow for a fixed-price contract, and when there is uncertainty regarding contract performance, then it might be appropriate for a contracting officer to consider a cost reimbursement type contract. Cost reimbursement contracts provide for payment of allowable incurred costs to the extent prescribed in the contract. The most common type of cost reimbursement contract is cost plus fixed fee, or CPFF, which also pays the contractor a fixed fee as profit. Cost reimbursement contracts are the most risky for an agency due to potential cost escalation, and because the agency pays the majority of all costs associated with the contract, regardless of whether or not the contract is completed. These contracts establish an estimate of total cost for the purpose of obligating funds and establishing a ceiling that the contractor may not exceed, except at its own risk, without the approval of the contracting officer. Before using a cost reimbursement contract, consider the conditions listed in FAR 16.301-2 and -3. It's important to note that the FAR prohibits the use of a cost reimbursement contract when acquiring commercial items. In both time and materials and labor hour contracts, the contractor is paid a fixed hourly rate that includes wages, overhead, general and administrative expenses, and profit for labor performed under the contract. Time and materials contracts also reimburse the contractor for the allowable actual cost of materials, while labor hour contracts have no reimbursement for materials. Time and materials contracts may only be used when it's not possible at the time of placing the contract to estimate accurately the extent or duration of the work or to anticipate costs with any reasonable degree of confidence. For example, a time and materials contract might be used for emergency repair service. The contract will pay for the hours that the workers spend repairing the item and the materials that they use to repair it. A labor hour contract is a variation of the time and materials contract, differing only in that materials are not supplied by the contractor. For example, if the government awarded a labor hour contract for janitorial cleaning services, the contractor would be paid a fixed hourly rate for the actual hours the employees spent cleaning. There would be no reimbursement for cleaning supplies under this type of contract. So how do you choose which type of contract is right to use for your acquisition? When selecting and negotiating the appropriate contract type, consider these factors found in FAR 16.104. FAR Part 16 describes each contract type, provides guidance on limitations, and supplies contract clauses to use in solicitations. Be sure to consult the FAR for the most recent information on contract types when you're preparing a solicitation. For more detailed information about the various contract types, please visit www.acquisition.gov and search FAR Part 16 Types of Contracts, or enroll in the FAC 068 Contract Types course, which can be accessed through www.fai.gov